Good evening. My name is Miriam Udel, and I am the Judith London Evans Director of the Tam Institute for Jewish Studies, and I am delighted to be with you tonight to talk about the future of faith. According to the Pew Research Center's 2020 survey, American Jews represent just 2.4% of US adults, but several demographic trends in the American Jewish community speak in important ways about the future of faith more broadly. Over a quarter of those US Jewish adults identify as Jewish by ethnic, cultural, or family background and have at least one Jewish parent, but at the same time would describe themselves as atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular. Those are the vaunted nuns, N-O-N-E-S, not to be confused with the N-U-N-S. Among Jewish adults under 30, about 40% describe themselves this way, as nuns. At the same time, younger Jewish adults are much more likely than older Jews to identify as Orthodox. Fully 11% of American Jewish adults under the age of 30 identify as ultra-Orthodox or Haredi, which is true of just 1% of American Jews age 65 and older. These divergent religious identities also track closely with political affiliation. When the Pew survey was conducted during the hotly contested election season of fall 2019 into spring of 2020, 71% of American Jews overall leaned Democratic. This was true for 75% of those who identify as nuns, or Jews of no religious affiliation. But among the Orthodox, the inverse was true. 75% tilted Republican, compared with just 57% back in 2013. So now add to this schismatic landscape the presence of social media in our lives, which can function as an echo chamber that reinforces our convictions and also can act as a fishbowl that publicizes those convictions to our communities. The religious sphere risks becoming less of a refuge from mundane matters than an accelerant of political identities and commitments. How can people in a situation like this even begin to understand one another? Well, I would say that you need a translator, or you need what I like to think of as a translation mindset. I want to talk tonight about how the work of translation impacts and helps to enrich the future of faith. So when I say a translation mindset, I don't just mean word to word, language to language, literal translation. I mean the whole process by which you make one culture, set of assumptions, ideology intelligible to others. Now, this moment that I just described to you with all of those statistics, this is not the first time that politics and religion have intersected in a complicated way for Jews. In fact, one of the hallmarks of Jewish modernity has been a complex negotiation between traditional practice and belief, the insistent rise of secular thought, and a set of political commitments that has ranged all the way from protecting the community from anti-Semitic violence through any means necessary to uniting with the workers of the world to bring about revolution. I study a period of red-hot, sometimes even white-hot, political contest as it interacted with the Jewish experience. And I study it in a particularly revealing new way by paying attention to the universally urgent question, what shall we tell the children? Children's literature offers a kind of alternative or unexamined record of what kind of a world its authors were trying to make. So tonight, I want to offer one Jewish lens onto the future of faith by telling you about a literary mutt in the Bronx circa 1931, the nadir of the Great Depression. This is a children's book by an author who styled himself Chaver Paver, bosom buddy in Yiddish, who was a Ukrainian-American known to his parents as Gershon Einbinder. And this book that I'm talking about was published in 1935. It's a work that I've translated that will appear in English about a year from now, and it's called Lobzik, Tales of a Clever Pup. As the title suggests, Lobzik is an adorable and very intelligent mixed breed doggy who is found on an elevated subway platform one night and adopted by Berel the operator, that is, the sewing machine operator. The book, comprising 12 linked stories, operates like a radio play or a sitcom. It traffics in stereotypes. So Berel the operator is gruff but loving. His wife, Mama Molly, is a cheerful, efficient housewife. Brother Mulik is brave, and Sister Rivkele is kind. And in these 12 linked chapters, we have 12 different stories that include rising action, a moment of crisis, and a resolution, usually featuring doggy Lobzik as the hero. Now, Berel and Molly's family doesn't go to synagogue or observe the Sabbath. They identify as radicals. Keeping kosher is never mentioned, and Berel reads the newspaper rather than studying the Mishnah. What is the significance of the family's Jewishness or of the fact that the work was composed in the Jewish fusion language of Yiddish? This question takes on a special poignancy nearly a century after the book's publication, when Yiddish is no longer the vernacular of a bustling world of secularizing immigrant Jews. I'd like to hazard an answer to this question of significance by looking closely at Berel's catchphrase. With extraordinary efficiency and emotional charge, the phrase I'm about to share with you offers a study in how Yiddish makes meaning in a modern secular context. And so it tells us something about the future of faith. Starting with mild grumbling about some rainy weather in the first chapter on the evening when Berel adopts Lobzik on that subway platform, and continuing in just about every episode in the book, Berel resorts to a gentle expletive that he pronounces as akapore. In Hebrew, it would be kapara. The most accurate neutral translation for this phrase that I could come up with would be, gosh darn it, which offers a gently blasphemous harnessing together of God and damnation, albeit in a softened form appropriate for a dad joke. Small annoyances and pleasures, as well as large disasters, can elicit akapore from Berel. Now, this is a very seasonally relevant term, and I think this is probably why I had it on my mind when I thought about what to share with you tonight. The term harkens back to a ritual that's performed on the eve of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, coming up this Sunday evening, in which either a chicken or an equivalent sum of money that could purchase a chicken is designated as a symbolic substitute for the purpose of atonement. The individual sins are symbolically transferred onto the kapora object so that the human being might be spared a punishment, even one that is well-deserved. After a brief recitation explaining what you're doing, the chicken is ultimately slaughtered and donated to a needy family for chicken soup, or the money is given to charity. And the generosity that's being practiced in that donation helps to shore up the case for why atonement is deserved. Now, this expression, akapore, comes to have very wide cultural significance among Yiddish-speaking Jewry. Any bad experience can be wishfully designated as a kapore even after the fact. May this bad weather, financial reversal, professional or personal setback serve as a redemptive kapore so that I might evade an even worse fate. A sheine, reine kapore, a nice, clean kapore, is the Yiddish way of saying, serves them right. And the suffering can even contain an admixture of pleasure. To be a kapore for someone, in colloquial Yiddish, is to be madly in love with them. Which brings us to Labzik's final chapter, which tells the story of a historical event that actually did take place, the Hunger March on Washington in the summer of 1932, although there is no dog mentioned in the historical record. Bettel is chosen to represent his block of workers and to go to Washington, D.C. to participate in this march. And after 11 chapters of proclaiming this or that to be a kapore in his Yiddish-saturated surroundings in the Bronx, Bettel finally let slip that habitual phrase in what we presume is an English language conversation with a new friend of his, Tom Lincoln, the miner from West Virginia. Some comrades have come out to bring coffee and sandwiches to the protesters. And Tom Lincoln, and Bettel is talking to Tom Lincoln, and he says, a kapora, the comrades are so good to us. And Tom Lincoln says, a kapora, what's that? Bettel couldn't explain what it meant, so he said, oh, it's nothing, nothing. The English word is used in the Yiddish text. And then he explains, oh, I just meant the sandwiches. Bent on making common cause with his fellow workers, Bettel understandably focuses on the sandwiches and coffee, the universal language of hunger and satiety. But in failing or refusing to explain a kapore, Bettel consigns to oblivion the linguistic fossil that is also the living marker of the civilization that has shaped him and that has led him to this moment of shared humanity and justice seeking. Tom has asked in a spirit of sympathetic curiosity, inviting Bettel to explain himself. Now, a kapore might be hard to understand and even harder to explain on the fly, but it certainly isn't nothing. This vignette illustrates a moment when the work of translation was called for, but left undone. The future of faith, if the Pew statistics are to be believed, will involve schism, dissensus, and small patches of shared ground. But the mindset of the translator can resist the fraying of the social fabric that this divergence would seem to dictate. Not just translating between literal languages, but being able to make meaning across difference. Being able to explain where you're coming from, what it means to you, the forces that have shaped you, and your aspirations for where you're headed and why. This is the kind of reflection that takes root in the nurturing soil of a liberal arts education. And this is what I hope the future of faith will look like. Thank you.